Hello and welcome. I am on day 2 of my Storytellers week-long stream. Today we are playing Moonflower, which is actually my own game. This is my first release game. It's in 2 months. It's, well, not even 2 months. Oh no, it's at the end of March. So yeah, in 2 months it will be a year old from release. And at Storytellers, we might just maybe have a little bit of an announcement about more things to come with it. So I'm excited about that. So hopefully this year we'll have a little DLC that will be an after ending for it. So I'm super excited about that. Test will be, have I set everything up correctly this time? Because I got distracted by Baldur's Gate 3 and I lost track of the time. So let's get stuck in with Moonflower. Hopefully I believe it's set up right. No? Oh my goodness, I haven't even changed the... I see. There we go. I muted the wrong thing. Oh, hid the wrong thing. This is why I don't do lives. I do something wrong every time. The potion bubbled gently under the man's watchful eye, occasionally sending up tiny wisps of white steam that smelled faintly earthy. Skylar watched it. He did not. Skylar reached for it. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a humble concoction of water, cucumbers, and aloe vera. And yet it interested him greatly. The desired result was nothing more than a simple ointment, meant to heal minor burns completely when applied directly to the skin. However, he smiled to himself as he emptied a small bowl of crushed sylvite into the mixture. The concoction began to freeze before his very eyes, a sudden drop in temperature sending quickly spreading stress fractures throughout the glass vial. Everything inside turned brittle in an instant, and it only took an instant, and it only took an instant more for the entire beaker to shatter with a deafening crack. The embarrassing thing when recording, when you wrote the thing and still can't say it out loud. Speaking is hard. Skylar watched on in fascination. A reaction like that wasn't unheard of. In fact, it's exactly what he was aiming for. An ointment that would continuously cool a burned site over an extended period of time. If it worked as expected, then it would no doubt become an incredible tool for the kingdom. However, simply dropping the sylvite into the potion, which in itself was a mineral only rarely found in the dried up ruins of ancient seas, caused far too violent reaction. The freezing was too quick and far too powerful. But if I can achieve a similar result with a more readily available reagent? Something widely accessible that anyone could create with supplies found in their own home. He was certain, without a doubt, that the sylvite would act as a stepping stone, a bridge towards a potent cooling balm that anyone could create. But for now, all he could do was note down that that sylvite was far too dangerous to be applied directly to the skin. For now, anyway. With deft hands, Skylar picked up an empty bottle and poured water into it. It sat still within the glass, unmoving, until he reached for the feather of a bird. These alchemists use funky things. The ingredients for a healing potion that's particularly potent and effective, though once again difficult for a common person to create. After all, not everyone had an abundant stock of bird feathers just lying about. All he needed to do now was add sand, fire powder, and eucalyptus leaf. 3 things he had ready in stock, but before he could gather the ingredients, a knock sounded at the door. Damn it all. Visitors always come at the worst times. With a small huff, Skylar placed the bottle back on the lab table and took a moment to compose himself. He straightened out his crimson red vest before heading towards the door to open it. I hope I didn't catch you at a bad time. The perfectly put-together woman smiled brightly at Skylar. Her blonde hair was done up neatly in a ponytail. Wavy strands fell down either side of her face, framing her brilliant pink eyes. The familiar sight of her made him smile as he stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Your Highness, you should have called in advance. Yelba bowed to the woman, who simply rolled her eyes and hit the top of his hat lightly with her gloved fingertip in response. Walking down the deeply... What? Oh, Walking past the deeply bowing Skylar, she crossed the room, her hands carefully folded in front of her as she inspected the man's work. With a smile, she turned and looked back over her shoulder at Skylar, whose own gaze found hers instantly. Your Highness. And what shall I call you then? Would High Alchemist Skylar suit, good sir? If it pleases the lady, she may call me whatever she wishes. She laughed lightly at his response, as if the very notion was completely and utterly absurd. Stop with that nonsense, Nika. Hearing the use of his first name, he immediately raised an eyebrow, until he saw the smile that lit up the young princess's face. If it were anyone else. Did you come here to annoy me, my dearest princess? Or are you looking for something specific of your loyal servant this morning? This fine morning? Whatever I came here for, it certainly wasn't for you to annoy me, my dear alchemist friend. With a chuckle at her own jest, Olivia walked forward again to come face to face with Skylar. Standing only the tiniest bit shorter than he did, she looked up into his eyes with a sly smile on her lips. See how foolish we sound being so formal? I'm not a princess here. I come as your friend. Skylar returned the girl's warm smile and nodded in response, letting out a tiny sigh of relief as he accepted the shift in conversation. I know. So what brings you here then, Olivia? Come to request a potion? Or hear a story while you're passing through? None of those this time. She shook her head, her hair swishing softly behind her like a silk ribbon caught in a gentle breeze. Then what do I owe the pleasure? Skylar dusted his hands off and leant against the table he'd only just been working at, giving Olivia his full attention. The young woman simply smiled, an apparent desire to extend the mysterious circumstances behind her visit, although Skylar already had a theory as to why she was here. What are you working on over here? Something new? She gestured towards the cracked vial with a raised eyebrow as she spoke. I can't help but notice it's, well, broken. Is that supposed to happen? You will not avoid my query with distraction, Olivia. But if you truly want to know, then yes and no. How curious. Both yes and no. Please elaborate. The result of the broken vessel is expected, given the ingredients for volatility, and yet it is also not the desired result. The alchemist's expression morphed into the royals. That wasn't even close to the right word. The royal's expression morphed into one of amazement. Her eyes widened as though he was speaking about a secret only shared in whispers. Inquisitive as ever, her thirst for the adventure of discovery was surely inherited from her queen mother. Perhaps just humouring her for a short while will do no harm. A knowing glint in his eye, he directed the princess's attention to the equipment she had previously been inspecting. Would you care to take a look? Her eyes almost sparkled as the realization dawned on her that she was about to get a first-hand lesson by the famed alchemist himself. You would show me? You truly don't mind? Do you wish me not to? He knew very well she would not reject such an opportunity. Often scolded by her mind as a child for pestering the alchemists to share their secrets, something she had never quite outgrown. Ha! Now that you've teased me with such a thing, you are required by law to follow through. Olivia folded her arms over her chest and nodded her head. Her stubborn declaration betrayed the fact that she was nearly vibrating with excitement. By law. How preposterous. Is that so, my dear princess? I can't say it's a law I've ever heard of, but who am I to disagree with royalty? And the backgrounds are so pretty. I've wanted to work with this artist for so long. She does absolutely incredible work. A hearty chuckle escaped him as his attentive student pretended she couldn't hear him. Once more, Skylar repeated his experiment, though this time being somewhat more sparing with his ingredients, lest he cause a royal incident that couldn't simply be explained away. And once more, the vial began to splinter. Satisfied now? Now, princess. That's enough stalling. What is it that you came here for? Look at him. He is shapely. Surely you have better things to do than watch glass break. Much to no one's surprise, the woman ignored his second question. Tell me, why does it do such a thing? Such a destructive and immediate reaction? And expected but not desired. How so? How do you make it give you the desired result? What is the desired result? She had 1,000 questions at the tip of her tongue, all prepared to be instantly launched at her feline-featured friend. Expected but not desired indeed. Shady. Frowning lightly, Skylar returned to his rested position against a nearby desk, his ivory hand making a subtle ding as he retrieved a forgotten tea from the desk's surface. You won't answer? Is sharing knowledge not the purpose of an alchemist? Her face drooped in a pout, a tried and true tactic on anyone else. I seem to recall an unanswered question of my own. The princess sighed and cleared her throat before continuing. Fine. You know why I'm here. I've come to ask you to the Moonflower Festival. I've already submitted the required materials for the ritual. You need not come here to ask. Oh, please. You know what I mean, Nika. She cut the man off sharply, lowering her eyes in a playfully contemptuous way. Why... Oops. I can roll back on this one. Why would I come all the way down here to ask for potions that I already know you're submitting? You're not the foolish type. Skylar sighed heavily as she continued talking, shaking his head slightly as he gave voice to his own thoughts. He spoke even without thinking about it, merely stating the obvious. I'm not going. His tone was direct and definitive. Even he hadn't anticipated the sharp edge his words had once spoken. It would mean the world to my father, and to me, of course, if you would at least consider it. Mean a lot to a king whose council barely tolerates my existence. This thought he kept to himself, however. Olivia slowly bat her eyelashes towards him, a trick she used often to get what she wanted from potential suitors, guests of the kingdom, and even the staff that waltzed around the palace. However, it was also a trick he knew well, and it had no effect on the High Alchemist. Skylar had known the princess for over 20 years, and he'd even given her pointers in the past of how to deal with unruly people. I like the idea of Skylar teaching Olivia how to do the pouty eyelash fluttery expression, because that's just hilarious to me. It's like teaching the pet cat to beg. Still, it didn't stop her from trying to play coy with him every now and then, though never with any real success. Skylar raised a brow and grinned, giving Olivia a look of disbelief as she made one last attempt to coax his participation into accepting her... What? As she made one last attempt to coax his participation into accepting her invitation. That's certainly a sentence. You truly have mastered the art of subtly getting what you want, my friend. But I will not put my personal comfort on the line just for appearances. Ooh, wee, pops out. Let's see. Let's make the music a little bit. He scrunched up his nose scrunched up as he said that word, like he had just smelled something foul. There was nothing like the stench of high society nobility to make an otherwise perfectly good day turn sour. They swarm me because I'm a feloness. It's rather vexing. You can hardly blame them. There aren't very many of your kind, so they're entranced. I do not think they mean to harm you in any way. Really? What about Lady Oberyn, who always demands to be allowed to touch my tail? What of her? She offered the man a weak smile, but pursed her lips to say nothing. Pursed her lips to speak nonetheless. I'll be by your side. You can be my personal guest. I dare any noble to speak out of place with me in their presence. I'm still... Struggle streak with the music. She grinned wider now, this time bearing some sparkling white teeth. Said mental image. Her eyes twinkled with challenge between her long lashes as she looked back at Skylar. Duke Fargus owes us gold for a bridge we are funding for his nation, and Duchess Pellegrine needs our favor to help push forward a proposal she's drafting regarding magical law. Neither will push against me, lest they fall out of my dear father's favor. And what of Lady Oberyn? Hardly a problem. Like a fly that need only be swatted away. That's what you think. She made the motion with her hand, swatting aside away an invisible bug. The princess gave him a confident nod, as if to say such problems would never trouble him when he was at her side. This is a momentous occasion for the kingdom, but also for you and your studies. You deserve to be celebrated for your work, in person. And I could use the company, if I'm being honest. She offered up the last part with a sheepish smile. Ooh, sheepish smile. Suddenly I'm Sean Connery. With a terrible, bad impression. A small, intrepid thing that was enough to pull at Skylar's heartstrings. More than her batting her eyelashes ever could. What do you say? Oh, please, Nika, join us. Skylar shut his eyes tightly, placing his index finger across the bridge of his nose. He inhaled sharply, drawing strength to give his answer. A simple and meek answer. Fine. Fine? The young princess's eyes lit up as she practically jumped up and down in place, leaning towards her longtime friend. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, with a wide grin on her face as she stared at Skylar in disbelief. Did I hear you correctly? You did, but if you keep it up, I'll change my answer. I'm doing this for you, but you'll owe me something in return. A favor. Of course, my resources are always at your disposal. You need just ask. And I will. One day. However, Skylar was positive that even if he were dying, he would never use all the resources at his disposal. He would use all the resources at his disposal before even requesting a favor from the princess. She was a dear friend to him, but even more so, she was one of the few people left in the world he cared about enough to suck up his pride and let himself be gawked at for a few hours by the endless parade of the high society mobility. Mobility? High society nobles. A few hours. It's just a few hours. It's all it will take to make her night, even if it means facing Lady Ogren and her ridiculous demands. Hopefully I won't regret it. He raised both hands above his head in surrender as he said those words out loud, as well as to himself. He turned back to his workstation with another sigh as he began sorting through some potions on the table in front of him. Crack! A piercing shriek reverberated through the lab, tiny projectiles rocketing through the space at an alarming speed. What was that? Eyes wide, the girl retreated from the assorted equipment, as though her very life flashed before her eyes. A sight Skylar could not help but smile at. There are certain things in my writing that are very common, and couldn't help but smile is one of those things that I write a lot. What did you touch? What? Nothing! Of course she touched nothing. Forgive me, princess, but an opportunity such as that so rarely follows the delivery of requests such as you've had. Skylar approached the offending bench, picking up the remainder of the destroyed bottle. Ah, it would appear our little experiment has decided to demonstrate what happens when one does not pay close enough attention to their surroundings. Olivia placed her hand over her racing heart, taking several deep breaths as she attempted to calm herself. You did that on purpose, didn't you? She wrinkled her nose at the alchemist. I am quite certain I have done no such thing. Skylar shook his head. Olivia narrowed her gaze at him in suspicion for a moment longer before her expression shifted. You jest, Princess. If I were to do something to put you in any sort of danger, the punishment would be severe. I don't wish for my head to be in a basket particularly. Brow raising is another one, yes. I suppose you're right. Composing herself, Olivia approached the feloness cautiously. Today is not the day for such a fright, Nika. Skylar chuckled in response. Indeed, you are correct. Perhaps a lesson in indulging the requests of royalty? An offended gasp met his playful suggestion. I wouldn't go that far. An unexpected reaction from a harmless exercise, that's all. Incorrigible. Exactly like her mother. As you say, Princess. Skylar glanced out of the corner of his eye at the young woman as she struggled to contain herself. It only took their eyes meeting for her to erupt in giggles a moment later. I do so enjoy your company, my friend. I suppose your presence is acceptable. Olivia swatted playfully at the older man's hat once more. How rude. Without me, you'd never leave this strange place. Without you, I would never have returned to the palace at all, Princess Olivia. She would never know that, of course. Strange is subjective, don't you think? Putting aside talk of that, though, I had a query. How fares the town preparations? Ooh. I just realized that under every word I'm reading, I have the mouse. So, my mouse is going crazy. Hang on. I can't take the cursor away. Skylar brought a finger to his lips, deep in thought of the busy markets in the town below, which were probably even more busy with the upcoming celebration. The town? I can only assume it proceeds smoothly. I have not heard any reports otherwise. I would like to believe that means it's going well? Good. Good. Does something concern you, Nika? Concern? Of course not. I had thought to venture out below to replenish some of my supplies. However... Olivia giggled knowingly. It was already obvious to the princess what was going on. However, you didn't want to get stuck engaging in celebration preparations. Skylar nodded solemnly. I think you should go, Nika. You might even find the markets fun. You do know what fun is, don't you? Lest I repeat myself, being gawked at by the citizenry is not my idea of fun. Olivia sighed, although her smile never left her face. At least you can go. Skylar offered her a sympathetic smile. Being princess and moonseer came with many restrictions. While he was treated with fear, intrigue, and sometimes lust, Olivia was a precious doll to be displayed and immaculately maintained. It was an unlikely friendship between the pair, but one born of mutual social pressure. Father will be curious as to where I've been this whole time. I cannot stay. However, It has been great fun, as always. Perhaps next time you'll be visiting for pleasure and not for the request of work. Skylar offered the girl a sly grin as she giggled in response, nodding along in agreement. An innocent little motion of pure joy he wished she could spare on others aside from him and a few very other special people. She had a wonderful laugh, like a light spring breeze whistling across the quiet glade after a long winter's nap. It was delightful, the sort of sound that filled any heart that heard it with a warm satisfaction, despite whatever troubles and concerns they might have faced that day. That is a line from my editor, and I do believe they are quite the Olivia fan. Ooh, with any luck, muting my microphone just then worked. The princess was indeed good company. She was pleasant to spend time with, quick to laugh at a joke, and kind to everyone who came in contact with her. Perhaps so. Hi, Alchemist Skylar. With her parting words left hanging in the air between them, Olivia slipped out of the room once more. Skylar stared at the door for a moment before returning his attention back to the potion he had left at his table what felt like forever ago. Now there's so much that I wish I could do with this game. I'd love to have been able to add more CGs. I really wanted to be able to voice act it, but we just... Not all games can do all things. An unsettled Skylar stood motionless in a deserted... That's one of my big problem words. The difference between desert and desert. I can never remember which one has the two S's. Every time I have to write it, I end up Googling which one's which. An unsettled Skylar stood motionless in a deserted courtyard, worry etched into his otherwise soft features. He was apprehensive in a way he could not quite explain. More so than was reasonable for a simple festival. There was something sharp on the wind. The aura of the palace felt almost wrong somehow. Perhaps he was simply overly worried for his beloved princess. Sometimes he felt as though he was the only one who actually genuinely cared for her as a person. I have seen it actually. Desserts is stressed backwards. Beyond her title and birthright. Would that you were here, Vera. Your little girl could desperately use the support of her mother tonight. The villainess's ears twitched. Slightly louder this time. Not a moment to my own thoughts these days. Can I help you with something? A knight stood before him. A sudden shyness fallen over his features as the alchemist turned his attention to him. Sir, the princess has sent summons for your attendance at the commencement of the Moonflower ball tonight, sir. I decided mid-sentence that I am not going to do a stutter.
Does he fear me, or is this stud her natural one? Well, I suppose it matters not. It would not do to cause him to fail his mission by refusing. It seems the princess has doubts that I will keep my promise to her. I cannot say, sir. I jest, sir. The knight looked alarmed as he scrambled to answer, his words getting stuck in his throat. Wesley Siddle, my lord. Has no one asked this poor fool's his name before? Siddle. As in Knight Marshal Garrick Siddle? His son, sir. I see. This must be the younger son of that... of that pompous oaf. So the lower-ranked son gets sent on an errand. Well, Sir Wesley, you may tell Her Highness I will be along shortly. I wish but a few more moments to prepare myself for... He gestured weakly towards the ballroom. Yes, Lord High Alchemist, sir. He managed to say that without a stutter. Sir? Skylar glanced at the man. He was fidgeting and shifting his feet as though he had something to say. Was there something else? No, not exactly, sir. I just... Yeah. This is getting bothersome. Speak freely, if you have something to say. Yeah, so this is Moonflower. It was originally meant to be for the jam, the visual novel jam that I run on itch.io with my friends at 2.5 Studios. It's a fantasy-themed jam. It was supposed to be made within 3 months for that, but we went on. we doubled our production time, so it didn't release for that. But it also doubled its word count. So in all, it took about 8-9 months to do. I wrote the script. I have programmed it all. I have, it was funded out of mostly by my Patreon. And then I've got the help of a background artist, a character artist, as well as getting some custom little items and some chibis that you'll see soon as well. So there's a couple of different different freelancers who worked in, but mostly it is completely all made by all my games are pretty much all me, which is why I don't sleep. The knight took a breath and nodded. I'm surprised to see you in attendance, sir. The staff and security were told you wouldn't be coming. I mean, it's difficult, but this is also all I've ever wanted to do with my life, so even though it is a struggle, it's still like everything I want, so it's a little easier to deal with then. It was not my first choice of activity tonight, or even my second. You may thank a very persuasive princess for the change of plans. So Wesley smiled at that, all nervousness melting away. Oh? This is an interesting change. So the knight is interested in the princess? I so badly want to make a spin-off game for Olivia and Wesley. I just don't know how to make it anything but kind of more of a kinetic novel. I'm really not sure what to do with branching, like a branching story. It would most be just some kind of little spin-off shorter story for them, although it probably would go into her mother as well. Too many game ideas and not nearly enough time to do them. She's amazing, isn't she? She's not like the other nobles. She actually cares about the people around her, learns the names and families of all her attendants, even when the other nobles tell her not to bother. I don't blame you for not wanting to be around them. Not a fan of the nobility, then. You're not what I expected either, if it's okay to say, sir. Skylar shifted his stance to better see the young knight before him. Fluffy brown hair, freckles, pale green eyes. He was cute by human standards. He couldn't help but wonder if Olivia had ever actually met this boy before. For he would have surely heard about him if she had. The visual inspection appeared to alarm Wesley even more, the boy rushing to explain himself. Wait, that came out wrong. It's just... Guards are taught to leave the alchemists alone, that they do important work, but... They are skilled and talented individuals in natural and scientific studies, but who have remarkably little social abilities? Wesley couldn't help but laugh. Just couldn't help it. Yes, my lord. Exactly that. But more so, well, you're not human? His statement was blunt and matter-of-fact. He knew exactly how the Knight Marshal in particular felt about him. The son of a disaster. A non-human entity who must be closely monitored and little interaction given. His role as High Alchemist granted to him solely by demand of the Queen. Wesley nodded apologetically. Treated with either fear, disgust, or possibly worst of all, something exotic to possess. Well, as you can see, you have nothing to fear in that regard. Me, however... I would love to be able to do translations, but unfortunately that would be something that would need a hell of a lot of a budget for, which I just don't have, unfortunately. He glanced towards the outer doors that would lead them through the main hall, throne room, and into the ballroom tonight's opening ceremony was being held in. His frown deepening the longer he looked. My lord? Skylar snapped out of his daze. Yes, Sir Wesley? Might I escort you to the ball on behalf of Her Highness? Seems Siddle's youngest is quite sweet after all. You aren't worried about being gobbled up by the hungry nobles? No, sir. My older brother is the only one of interest to them. I think I will be quite safe. It would be my honor, Lord High Alchemist, sir. Such an awkward grouping of words. The young knight looked up at him with a mix of innocent sincerity, slight worry of rejection, and pure hope in his eyes. He wasn't the tallest himself, and this young man was even shorter than he was. Perhaps there's hope for Olivia's guards yet. You can simply call me Lord Skylar. Lord High Alchemist is far too long and pretentious. Yeah, TDS is a long one. It's almost, 300,000 words? Almost 300,000 words? It is beefy. The in-between will be around about that too, I think. Like Common Rats. 100,000 words long almost. Crying. Skylar, how tall is Skylar? I don't really necessarily give my characters actual heights because I'm personally terrible at judging distance, height, things like that. I'm just awful at it. But he's around about, maybe about, I don't know, he's around that like 5'8", 5'9" kind of space, and then they kind of stagger down from there, and Ender is like 6'3" or something. Tall elf. Ezekiel's the shortest out of them in my head at about like 5'6" or so. But I kind of just pick random numbers. My instructions to my artist are always just kind of like tall, shorter than that one, taller than that one, somewhere in between. The young man nodded in acknowledgement. An agreement. Very well, Sir Wesley. It would be my honor. Yeah, it's difficult with fan translations for things like this because of distribution and things like that. If you actually have to modify anything with the game itself, it's generally frowned upon. But the only way to actually, find out it officially would be to ask them on their Discord or Twitter, or send them an email through their website. Unfortunately, it's not a question I can, or a comment that I can give an answer to. The knight bowed deeply before turning on his heel and marching towards the door. His enthusiasm was almost blinding. The muffled sound of a large crowd reached Skylar from behind the intricate wooden doors of the middle ballroom. Here, the celebrations would begin. The aristocrats would arrive to enjoy some light refreshments alongside their noble companions before being welcomed by the king and other members of the court. Mixing and mingling was like a game of chess to them all. Every piece carefully planned out to maximize influence while maintaining political alliances. The celebration would last 1 week, ending on the night of the silver moon, where the moonseer would conduct a ritual to imbue the moonflower with energy from a rare moon. The humans knew little about the way of these rituals. Why each piece of this carefully crafted ceremony had to be just so. They simply learned enough to keep themselves in power. A power that was waning more and more each day. If the ritual failed, their very way of life, and maybe their lives themselves, would be over. Are you ready to enter, Lord Skylar? No, but there are many things in life we must do before we are ready. Skylar fiddled with the collar of his vest, adjusting and readjusting, knowing full well none of his actions made a difference. A soft rumble came from the ballroom doors as they were opened, revealing a Let me go back to the music again. Now it's too loud in my ears. I don't know what the music balance on stream is like. Cursed music today. A soft rumble came as the ballroom doors were opened, revealing a scene filled with glittering lights laughter, music, and conversation. I do find it curious, Sir Wesley. The young man glanced at him and confused, maintaining a vigilant guard over his assumed charge. This is the rear door to this particular ballroom. Yes, sir. I thought maybe you would prefer to enter more discreetly than the main entrance. Indeed. I owe you my thanks for your foresight. Princess Olivia has a fine messenger at her disposal. I shall be sure to compliment your performance. After I have once more expressed my disapproval at being forced to attend such an event, of course. The knight smiled, unable to hide his blush at the thought of being complimented to the princess. Of course. It was my honor to escort you, my lord. Should you need anything else, you have but to ask. Another deep bow, and the knight was gone, consumed by the crowd filling the room. Surprisingly sweet, all things considered. Skylar made his way to a presently unoccupied corner of the large room. His eyes drifted over the growing crowd. One thing about parties hosted by nobles he could always get enjoyment out of was the fashion. There were simple dresses, plain colours in modest styles, all the way up to dramatic gowns and experimental uses of items attached to bonnets. Feathers and tulle, layers of sparkling stones, glimmering fabrics. It seemed every person present was dressed with intent. Gentlemen wore their finest suits and top hats, many sporting intricately designed monocles and expensive pocket watches. Each couple appeared to be attempting to outdress all others attending, to the point he wondered if there was some kind of prize for the most inventive outfit. I have such a vivid, picture of what this looks like. Just the chaos of fashion. It was a festival after all. Perhaps it was an actual planned activity. As the venue filled, so too did Skylar's tolerance for the noise and crowd dissipate. He had had his fill of people watching. That's such a mood. Okay, I showed up. Can I go now? The grandeur may have been a fine sight to behold for many, but not for him. It was easy for him to understand why people want to celebrate the Moon Fair. It was a festival specifically designed for celebration, and a rare one at that. Not a single person in the room was likely to believe to have even been alive at the last one. Even the royal family, whose connections to the Moonflower granted them extended lifespans, had all but perished since the last celebration. The only soul to have seen the previous festival was himself. People enthusiastically gathered to see the magic of their kingdom replenished, to participate in history itself. Still, it didn't make the idea any less repulsive for the felonious. Skylar could feel the anxiety and disdain rising within him. He understood the excitement. He had felt it once himself, a mere child at the time. He had been in attendance at the last Moon Fair. He had witnessed the week-long fanfare, the ritual and the merrymaking. Through all the glamour and breathtaking fascination, the picture of his mother's smiling face, the woman he adored most in the world. A sparkling smile, comparable to the crystal chandeliers, was always on her face. A smile he had not seen in nearly 90 years. A fact that had followed him every day since. But one that he hadn't had to experience so viscerally in years. a fact which could only compound his worry for the princess. Snapping his eyes to the doorway, Skylar began to search for the lovely Princess Olivia. Had she not coerced him to come, he would have simply left his alchemic contribution with the royal advisor and been done with it all. Now, where could this troublesome princess be? As much as the feloness complained about being convinced to attend, most of his bluster was merely for show. He would have been in attendance either way, just much less obviously. His grand plan to protect his princess laid to ruin. He couldn't help but smile to himself as he scanned the crowd. I need to find some new words. If she did not have her unwavering sense of adventure and independence, he would have been sorely disappointed. Both their mothers were quite the same way. Passionate, powerful women who possessed strength and willpower to break through any barrier presented before them. His own was a driving force, a zeppelin with no brakes, and Queen Vera was similarly a fierce and headstrong individual. Neither had been seen in quite some time. Unlike his mother, however, Queen Vera's fate was much more in the dark. He could only pray that she was safe. How she would have loved this festival, to see her little girl fulfill such a momentous role with such unshakable determination. After what felt like an eternity, even to him, his eyes finally landed on the woman he was searching for. A figure of absolute confidence, Olivia descended the main staircase, the crowd parting to watch her in awe. An adoration that would ruin anyone else. Several nobles gingerly stepped into her path, all wanting to be the first to greet her. Each one she politely thanked and excused herself from. She was looking for her escort, and could not keep him waiting a moment longer. Olivia. Skylar shook his head, an exasperated expression settled over his features. She just has to stir the nobles, doesn't she? Luckily for him, or perhaps unluckily, he could never quite decide. His keen sense allowed him to hear each and every word. Shifting from his spot of mild safety, he caught the eye of the princess across the room, her face lighting up in recognition. Pushing aside the shocked nobles, the princess made a beeline for her favorite official. Why, there you are. I've been looking all over for you. Have you now? You seem quite happy conversing with the... well, whatever that was in the bird's nest. Olivia made a great effort not to break into giggles at his fashion critique. It was quite awful, wasn't it? Indeed, but what would a festival be without questionable style choices? Shall we make our rounds? The princess linked her arm around Skylar's, her hand lightly brushing against the pristine ivory of his exposed limb. Her fascination with that arm is nothing if not baffling. She doesn't even realize her actions. She just kind of randomly starts patting his arm, like, ooh, soft. Do we have to? We do. Skylar groaned as he scanned the area. Well, if we must. Come, it will be over before you know it. Doubtful. He muttered under his breath, but the slight tilt of her lips told him she heard him quite well. The pair ventured out into the crowd, Olivia maneuvering with an effortless step, her experience and charm leading the way. dozens of noble families, servants and prolific members of the town flocking to the opening ceremonies, each hoping for a private audience with the royal family. 1, 2, 3. Hour after hours passed as Olivia and Skylar floated between the attendees, exchanging small talk and pleasantries, each encounter more exhausting than the last. Most elected to ignore Skylar. They focused on the charismatic princess instead, something he was more than happy to allow. Others made attempts at polite small talk, exchanging a few words with the High Alchemist before running out of topics to fake interest in. Finally, the pair were left with two groups. The town mayor, with him an unknown elven scholar, and the family of one of her ministers. Mayor Rutherford was one of the few aristocrats who Skylar actually liked. He was a humble man, a merchant and farmer by trade. His family had a long history of friendly relations with the Fey nations, making it a secret mission of theirs to care for the land in ways that benefited the town and the Fey who lived secretly among the fields and forests. Delightful start to the celebrations, Your Highness. You even managed to get this grouch to attend. The gruff town leader chuckled, a gentle elbow digging into Skylar's side. Yes, gloat all you want. I would like to attempt you to say no to royalty. Huh? Only you would try and resist the princess, my friend. And he did try, let me assure you. I shall go and greet the minister before it's time for our final stop. I'll leave you two to chat. I'm sure you have much to discuss. Skylar nodded in agreement. A small mercy to avoid that. The mayor and Skylar both bowed to the young royal as she separated from the group to attend to her other greeting. Say, Skylar. Skylar glanced at the man. Who is this young chap anyway? Who... Skylar followed the mayor's eyesight to the elven scholar that was standing with the group. His eyes went around the ballroom to take in the sights, and made no move to react to the mayor's question. He doesn't know? I'm afraid I do not know. I assumed he was connected to you. Me? Why would I have such a connection? I have never met this man in my life. Maybe because you've been standing together chatting? The two men stared at each other in disbelief before shaking their heads and turning their attention to the younger stranger.
He's so pretty, look at him.
Short, raven hair, a deep blue overcoat balanced on his shoulders, jade earrings dangling from pointed elven ears. His eyes were a hypnotic dual colour, the kind of colour that appeared to shift in hue as he gazed around the room in wonder, sometimes an azure blue, sometimes a vibrant purple. It was like watching a petal on the wind, swaying and flipping in the breeze. The fellowness found himself entranced by the way they shifted. He had never seen eyes of such a fascinating colour before. Well. Has someone caught the eyes of the elusive Lord Nikus Skylar? The alchemist snapped his focus away from the elven stranger, a look of near horror on his face. Whatever do you mean? If anyone's played one of my other games, Heart Agency, you might recognize that shadow. Skylar could feel his stomach sink as he felt the chubby hands close themselves firmly around his tail, an excited shriek piercing his sensitive ears. No, moon above, please not hurt anyone but her. Mr. Skylar, my darling kitty! Lady Ogren. Skylar wanted nothing more than for the floor to open and swallow him whole. Anything but being forced to endure that woman whose hands would only tighten as he made an attempt to move or escape her grasp in any way. Rutherford quickly bowed and excused himself, mumbling something about forgetting to snuff the fire crystal on the stove. What? You absolute coward, come back here! He's so cute! Look at him! Lady Ogren is absolutely me whenever I see a cat. Just must squish. Kitty. I lose my absolute mind whenever I'm around a cat. Lady Ogren, please restrain yourself. The woman rubbed his tail, rubbed her face against the distressed feloness's disheveled tail. Boundaries, lady. Princess. He was completely and utterly stuck. Completely and absolutely stuck. Experience told him Lady Ogren would not let go on her own, and he could not simply shout for the princess to help him. My lady, your hat is simply wonderful. Wherever did you get it? While a simple distraction, it was enough for Skylar to remove his tail from the greedy hands of the noble woman and retreat to an unoccupied corner of the ballroom. Timely intervention. I must make an effort to thank him later. The elven stranger had not said a word the entirety of the time they had been in each other's presence. He couldn't help but wonder why he had he couldn't help but wonder. Take a drink every time I use that phrase. Couldn't help but wonder why he had chosen that moment to finally speak up. Skylar let out a heavy sigh as he leaned against a nearby wall. An exhaustion overcoming him that was unique to the slow release of a tense anxiety that gripped his entire being. With any luck, Lady Ogren had been truly distracted, and he would enjoy a moment of safety from the crowd. The favor you owe me will be a great one. I was promised no tail touches. My sincerest apologies, good sir. Ripped from his rest, the voice of a man reached him. It's him. Then where's... The stranger smiled at his surprise. You are quite safe, I assure you. A young knight came to check on the disturbance and reported the situation to Her Highness, the princess. I expect her reaction will be quick and she will join you once more shortly. The man stepped closer, concern filling his colored gaze. But putting that aside, are you alright? Grumpy kitty. No, but that's not an answer one can give freely. I am significantly better the further away from that woman I am. Forgive my candidness, that was rude. Your intervention was most timely. You have my sincere thanks. Felonus bowed deeply to his elven protector, who merely smiled and shook his head. Nika Skylar, High Alchemist of Ashmire, a pleasure to make your acquaintance. The taller man bowed in return, but did not offer a name. Have you attended the Moon Fair before? To anyone else, this question would be preposterous, but an elven life was just as lengthy as a feloness, both fae of different shapes. Are you... It's just... Wonderful. I can't even remember what that line was meant to be in its entirety. What are you saying? It's just wonderful. From the fascinating fashion to the way these people interact with each other and the decorations. I have never seen such a display of beauty. The food and drink is plentiful, and words are traded as freely as water traveling down a stream. 1,000 questions rushed through Skylar's mind at the sight of this man's eyes glistening as he watched the ballroom in amazement. It certainly is a spectacle. Though it has made me wonder, what's it all for? What? Skylar stared at the man, dumbfounded. He was truly and utterly lost for words. What's it for? Yes. I have gleaned this is the first of 7 nights of celebration. I am yet to fully grasp what purpose it serves, however. The stranger tilted his head in confusion, looking to Skylar for answers, before once again returning to his people-watching. He's got puppy energy. What a fascinating man. Skylar had never met someone who captured his interest so organically. Oh no! Realistically, he had merely existed in front of him. He had not done or said anything particularly interesting, and yet Skylar found he struggled to look away from him. Perhaps it boiled down to the connection between Fae. All had some latent connection to each other through the natural magics they shared. This felt different, though. He felt he had met this person before. Ask him his name, or ask him to dance. It has been so long since I actually did anything with Moonflower that I don't actually remember which option is the best option. Ooh. Alright. We dance. Skylar shifted his position nervously. I can't help but notice you seemed interested in the dancing. The man glanced back at him, his eyes alight. Very much so. They move with such rhythm, and each knows exactly what the other is doing. They move like they're the only important things in the world. Would you like to give it a try? What am I thinking? Nika! Your princess has arrived, it seems. The elf bowed deeply to the pair, and in the time it took for them to register the action, he had disappeared like the morning mist in the wind. Meow. Oh, he left. Unfortunately. Who was that? I do not recall ever seeing him before. Not at any royal functions, nor even around the city. I'm sure there are many people Her Royal Highness has never met nor seen. I do not know, however. He made a very clear point to not offer his name to me. He wouldn't tell you? Skylar shook his head. He found himself both flustered and vexed by the encounter. Exactly who was he? So preoccupied with the mysterious stranger, the feloness failed to see the wicked smirk pass over the princess's face. A gentle hand tapping him on the forehead. What are you doing? Me? No, the garden gnome over there. Of course you. With a sweep of his arm, he removed the intruding hand, folding his arms across his chest in protest. an accusatory eyebrow raised. I've never seen you so distracted. I thought perhaps you'd fallen ill. Facetious as always, my princess. Say what you mean, princess. Olivia crept closer to him, a mixture of both excitement and slight worry on her face. I mean exactly that, Nika. I've never seen you so distracted by someone before. Did something happen with that man? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Olivia's face changed again, and this time he could not fail to see her wicked grin, even if he had wanted to. Did you want it to? As she raised her eyebrows suggestively, her entire demeanor ready to receive the ultimate gossip. Olivia. Did I? The princess giggled, her eyes twinkling with amusement and mischief. She leaned forward just an inch, slowly, like a cat teasing a mouse. You deny nothing. Never mind any of that. Skylar waved his hand dismissively, his heart hammering away in his chest at the prospect of being caught. Being caught. Nothing happened. I have been handled and leered at quite enough tonight. Are we done? Her playful grin gave way to one of remorse. Please forgive me. I did not expect such an extreme reaction from Lady Ogren. Even Minister Seabert was disgusted by the report. I'm sure he found it very entertaining. He believed it? I don't think he wanted to. But the knight who delivered the report seemed to have had good standing, so he accepted it with ease. Knight Marshal Siddle's youngest son Wesley, I believe. If what our mysterious stranger is to be... If what our mysterious stranger said is to be believed. Lord Siddle? She gasped as the name registered it in her mind. He seems like a fine lad, around your age, I would wager. I wasn't aware he had another son until I met him earlier, when you sent him to collect me. I sent Knight Marshal's son on a collection errand? Indeed you did, Princess. I assure you, he was most amiable to provide assistance to you. Quite a pleasant young man, actually. Olivia walked in several circles around her elder companion, her face wrinkled in thought. What troubles you, Princess? Ah, never mind. How about I grant you another favour for my slip-up? A total of 2. So she has been thinking for how to make up for her failed promise. There, your child is as troublesome as ever. I'll settle for a dance instead. I certainly can't have you owing me twice. That is far too much power for a single person. Olivia paused, as if to ponder the offer for a moment. A dance will suffice. Skylar scoffed in response to her tone. It will suffice? The girl in front of him let out a short giggle, light and airy. You know it is truly an honor to be accompanied by you, on or off the dance floor. Yes, it truly is. As Skylar tipped his hat downward and offered his hand to the princess. We have one more person to check in with. Then we can dance to our heart's content. Don't give me that look. I cannot have my tail grabbed again today, my lady, for fear it would come straight off. What if cats had the same defense response as lizards and could just drop their tail and grow it back? Disturbing thoughts. This person would never be so callous. So you say? I do, yes. We are to meet the most important and certainly most noble man we both have the pleasure of knowing. Skylar sighed. He already knew exactly who Olivia was alluding to. The king. Olivia nodded. Yes, Father wanted to speak to us both before the ceremonies began. Must he? I mean no disrespect, of course. However, I'd hate to waste his time. My potions are of no concern to him and quite simple to understand. As the only one among us who has actually attended a moon fair before, and one of his esteemed subjects, I'm sure there's much he wishes to speak to you about. Olivia held out her hand and beckoned for the feloness to join her. Come along, Skylar. Now would be a good time to steal him away. Ooh. The pair maneuvered through the crowd, Olivia stopping every so often to curtsy to people who called out her name. For one so young, she has an exemplary grasp of statecraft. As expected, the king wasn't hard to spot, and Skylar's gaze locked onto him after only a moment. One would think he'd always have a crowd surrounding him, but it was fascinating to see the opposite effect. People were standing a distance away, cautiously waiting for the king's invitation. Had they not been summoned, they could only look on in awe and wonder. For one who exhibits such intense buffoonery, Eamon truly is a fascinating and charismatic monarch. King Eamon Dunn, husband to Queen Vera Leth, and father to Prince Olivia Leth. Their reasoning for different surnames was no mystery. The royal line belonged and stayed with the female bloodline. Queen Vera refused to relinquish the name of her ancestor. King Eamon was the type of noble who was raised to be king. He was presented as one of the approved suitors for the then Princess Vera to choose from. The court was keen to once more have a king in place for the future, or at the very least someone far easier to control than the fiery royal Vera. He relished in the attention. He did little in terms of policy and governance, most of that fell to his elite ministers. Royalty is truly exhausting. An opinion shared with the royal advisor, the ever-suffering position given to his predecessor. A role which Skylar was certain he would never take, no matter how much the Queen begged, should he ever decide to move on from the High Alchemist himself. Olivia waved her hand in the air, then quickly pulled it back to her side once she realized her actions. Very ladylike. She cleared her throat, fixing a coy smile on her face. The noise drew the king's attention, a look of annoyance at being interrupted so brusquely clear on his face. A look which turned to joy as he laid his eyes on his precious daughter. The monarch muttered a few words to his current company, two elder males, before both nodded and backed away from the esteemed man. King Eamon wasted no time making his way towards his daughter, embracing her in a dramatic twirl before lightly nodding his head at the High Alchemist. "Father, please!" The girl giggled as her father lowered her once more. "Olivia, my gorgeous love, where is your gown?" Olivia shook her head. "Tonight is a mere introduction to the festivities. I wanted to save it for the main event." AKA, we didn't have the time or budget for a gown sprite. There is, oh gosh, if I could, there is so much extra that I would expand to this game. I love it as it is, but there is so much more that my head is just bursting with things that I would have done to it if I could. Although if you would give a developer an endless time and budget, you would never get a game, because we'd constantly be we'd constantly be expanding and adding and changing, and it would just get so big that it would just never end. Save it? My dear, we're a new one each night. This is our moment to shine to the whole world. Skylar stood as far back from the pair as he dared without seeming rude. For all his flaws, he is a doting father, if overly so. Finally, the king turned his attention to the feloness. Hi, alchemist. I was not made aware of your attendance tonight. I was under the distinct impression you had elected not to participate. Olivia made to answer, but the king affectionately petted her hand to silence her. He wanted his answer directly from the man he had questioned. He knows exactly what has happened. I can almost guarantee he forbade Olivia from extending the invitation, and she did so anyway. That was my original plan, your most esteemed majesty. Skylar bowed deeply. A formal and posture-perfect action, allowing the king to grunt in acknowledgement before rising once more. Olivia beside him wore a slight frown at the two men. Your indomitable heir, however, had a different plan. Yeah, he's kind of pretty too. Like, the king's he's an idiot, but he's pretty. Pray forgive the lack of updates to the guest list. Princess Olivia is quite impossible to decline. While annoyed at being talked into attending this garish event, he was simultaneously extremely proud of the competent young ruler Olivia was growing into. Indomitable was very much the correct word to describe her. She always managed to get others to see her point of view, to try whatever it was she suggested. Most were more than happy to follow her, but others rejected the idea of such a strength of character. The servants adored her kindness and lamented her freedom. Yes, she is quite formidable indeed. I'm glad you agree. The king snapped his attention back to his daughter. But don't you think being Moonseer means you aren't my precious baby anymore? He reached out and kneaded Olivia's cheeks. The woman scrambled to escape his tight grasp. Father, please, you're embarrassing me. It was always funny to Skylar how Eamon made a show of age. Eamon tried his hardest to appear more worldly and cultured than the alchemist, more regal, more knowledgeable, more grown-up, in the same breath refusing Olivia the chance to grow and mature. The ageless appearance of the Fae often threatened monarchs in particular, faced with one who had seen them before them and would see after them, all without a single sign of passing time. Though years certainly passed by, only one of the pair saw wrinkles creased into their skin. I'm glad that you have taken the time to come and speak to me, Olivia. I take it the festivities are to your liking? Everything is simply wonderful. You've done an incredible job, Father. I have never seen the palace or town so lively or so heavily decorated. The girl giggled with wonder as she spun in a circle to look at the decorations. The Moon Fair symbolizes a refresh to our society so we can continue to live the magical lives that we are entitled to. entitled. As my daughter has chosen you as her guard for this evening, I trust you will keep my daughter safe. The emphasis on his words was direct. Skylar was granted permission for this night only. Not that he wanted to spend any more of his time here, that was for certain. Father, you're acting as if something can go seriously wrong. We both know the rites are harmless. Not harmless. Everything could go wrong. Many of my requisition drafts are specifically designed to keep not only you, but the Moonflower safe during the proceedings. With good fortune, most will not be needed. My princess, I know you've been full of worry. Being named Moonflower is such a dreadful burden to have been thrust on you, but I am sure you will make me very proud. Olivia pushed his words away. All will go as planned, just as I've studied it. She's putting on a brave face, but I can tell how nervous she really is for this big responsibility. King Eamon locked eyes with Skylar. Moonseer is a dangerous role. See that what happened to the last one does not happen again. Father! Do we respond? Or do we take the high ground and ignore him? I think we respond. Skylar's tail twitched in irritation. With all due respect to your position, Your Majesty, the last Moonseer passed before you were even born. Her role as Moonseer bears absolutely no relevance to her death. Although that death was likely orchestrated in an attempt to replace her as Moonseer. The king snarled at the feloness. His trap taken. My, such aggression from one of my own lords, and I am to trust my most precious possession to one who would have such a brutish response to a simple question? A simple concern? Nika. The face of the young princess was etched with worry. Her typically placid feloness had never spoken back to the king before. The princess stepped forward to reach out to him. The death of the previous Moonseer, his mother, was not a topic he enjoyed. Even less so when spoken of by the elites of the palace. It was a story that changed the lives of his family forever. A story with far-reaching consequences by short-sighted fools. Calm yourself. He baits you. He always baits you. If it pleases His Majesty, I would take my leave and allow you to enjoy the opening ceremony with your beloved daughter. It does. You are dismissed, High Alchemist. I thank you for your service tonight. Skylar smiled and bowed once more to the royals, before turning on his heel to leave. The devastated face of the princess burned itself into his mind as the felonious alchemist exited the ballroom with a determination rarely seen from him, stopping only to briefly whisper an instruction to not let her out of your sight to the young knight Wesley as he stormed past him. The cool night breeze helped calm Skylar's nerves as he leant against the stone pillar of the courtyard. The courtyard was deserted, which suited him perfectly after the stifling atmosphere in the ballroom. He could hear laughter coming from inside. Some sort of joke being shared between those enjoying the evening festivities. You absolute fool of a feloness. He will not quickly forgive such a show of defiance. You were already barely tolerated with the Queen present, and even less without now. Skylar closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. An apprehensive tension claimed Skylar's body as the sound of approaching footsteps reached his keen ears. More company. Wonderful. He took a deep breath, focusing on the sound. Their steps were careful and light, but not exactly stealthy. Not Olivia. Good. But who then? Emerging from the stone doors was a tall, raven-haired elf. Not at all who Skylar had expected to appear. You? The man offered a kind smile, his eyes shining. Inside the ballroom, he had already captured Skylar's attention. Out here, steeped in moonlight, the stranger was almost ethereal. Moonlight suited most people, but he almost glowed. The smile turned awkward as the man scratched his cheek and averted his gaze. I saw you leave. You looked quite distressed, so He met Skylar's eyes. I followed you. I do hope that is not out of line. Normally I would say it was, but in this case... Skylar shook his head. Your company is quite welcome. Despite being the capital palace of Ashmire, Faeborn are few and far between. Skylar's eyes drifted back in the direction of the ballroom. A moment of peace settled on his heart as he recognized the song being played within. Now, I might have written this, but I don't actually know how to say it. I'm pretty sure it's French for flower. Or something like that. I can't remember. It's too many R's. Fleurir? Oh, bloom. Skylar nodded. A sorrowful smile played on his lips as he listened to the tune floating from the ballroom. One of the only benefits to having superior hearing. If I'm correct, this particular composition is unique to the festival being played, isn't it? Being held, isn't it? Indeed. Although I find myself quite surprised you know of it. You could say this festival is quite the constant in my life. Interesting. He is familiar with it, yet what he said before would lead me to believe he is seeing it for the first time. Curious. You seem quite well versed yourself. Skylar lowered his eyes. The moon fair wasn't his favourite topic, and yet he felt this man genuinely cared for his opinion on it. This is not my first moon fair festival. You would have been quite young during the previous celebrations, would you have not? The man motioned with his hand, as if measuring a child. I was, yes. I really want to see a baby Skylar. That would just be so cute. Very curious. It's easy to forget just how much time can pass between when time does little to affect you. Even so, you are correct. Compared to some of my brethren, I am still quite young. The stranger smiled knowingly, a smile quickly turning to sadness. You would have known the last moonseer then. Bella stared at the man, analysing his face. He knew my mother. Looking away, his ears drooped, an exhaustion washing over him. I did indeed. Veronica Schuyler, my namesake and mother. This song was one of her favourites, you know. Queen Olvia, her patron, had it commissioned many years ago, just for her. The elven stranger nodded. Hers was a spirit that blazed brighter than the moon. The stranger closed the gap between them. You must miss her. I cannot even imagine. So much that I cannot put it into words. The palace is a constant reminder of her loss. My father's downfall, never more present than now. Veronica Schuyler, the first true moonseer, a felonious woman who achieved a status unheard of before or since her. By Fae standards, she was a mere child, equivalent to a teenager in human development, but her resolution was strong. She won the favor of the then Princess Olvia, the future monarch who would establish the official Moonflower Festival and the Moonseer Charter some 300 years ago. Veronica was single-handedly responsible for the revitalization of a dying fable. An action that brought fear, jealousy, and mistrust to her, in equal amounts to the respect and admiration she had earned. Her life was cut devastatingly short by an alchemic disaster which destroyed a vast amount of the palace, killing many, including Queen Vera's uncle. Getting lost in memories past does no good for anything. To be honest, I fear for the princess. Perhaps it's just my own melancholy, but something doesn't feel right this night. I can't help but agree. He stared up in the moon, deep in thought. The stranger laughed, hand extended in front of him, beckoning Schuyler to take it. It's as if he wishes to dance. Take his hand, or question him. Would anyone actually reject him? Schuyler reached out to accept the offered hand, despite himself. This is silly. I did ask him myself earlier this evening. It would be rude not to accept now. Little babies! Look at them, they're so cute! Yeah, this would have been one you were thinking of where they actually do dance. A smile so joyous that he almost vibrated overtook the handsome elf. A single swift movement swept Schuyler into the immediate orbit of the taller man, the stranger placing Schuyler's left hand on his shoulder, and his own position just below the felonous shoulder blade. Interesting. The form of a waltz. Fitting for this music scene, I suppose. I hope I remember how. The man pulled Schuyler close and intertwined their fingers, his hand cool against Schuyler's porcelain limb. Was this difficult to make? Oh no! I just... That's meant to be a character line. Whoopsies. It's very beautiful. Transfixed, the stranger gently caressed his hand in his, running his middle finger tenderly down Schuyler's wrist. Gold veins threaded themselves through otherwise perfectly smooth porcelain, almost glowing under the moonlight. The elf chuckled as he spun the feloness with quickening tempo of the music. A warmth trickled through the golden veins where the other man had touched, down through his shoulder, making his spine tingle. An energy that felt familiar, but a sensation that caught him woefully off guard. What did he just do to me? The elf gazed down at the feloness in his arms. The feloness, suddenly feeling rather flustered, averted his own eyes in return. Step after step, the two swayed, twirled and circled each other. Two strangers dancing outside under the shining stars, a world apart from those inside. Circling behind Skylar, the stranger playfully swiped at his tail. Hey! The feloness spun on his heel to face the offending elf, a sheepish grin on his face. Skylar shook his head. A peculiar elf wandering into a festival. One who he won't even give his name, I will add, and has now pulled the tail of the High Alchemist to the crown. Tails swishing happily, the two men circled each other once more. Palm to palm, a silent challenge issued between the pair. So it's my name you want? Well, if you are truly so desperate, my name is... They keep getting blocked. The two men looked towards the direction of the ballroom, startled by the interruption. Curse you. The king's speech, I would wager. It would appear so. Shall we? Noobs. Building anticipation. I would rather not, but I suppose we must. I must confess to being curious what his speech will be. Nothing more than a show of extravagance, and far too much pressure placed on a young woman who simply wishes to heal the world of injustices of the past. You are close to the princess. What is she like, truly? I hear she holds the title of Moonseer, but... The stranger gestured to the stone door that would lead them back to the crowd. You have the right of it. Tasked with performing the rites, she has taken the burden of the title, but has never actually seen the Moonflower. A shiver crept down Skylar's spine, as his mind raced with the consequences of his troubled suspicions. The pair quietly re-entered the ballroom, sneaking past several guards who gave them disapproving looks. Skylar was certain he saw his new friend respond by pulling childish faces at them. He chose to ignore the act, though, for his own sanity. Skylar, Ender blowing raspberries in the back there. Nah. The room was filled with people, and these were only the most notable of dignitaries. The preceding days would only get busier. They weren't even using the main ballroom as of yet. 100 or 200 people were scattered around the smaller of the ballrooms, dresses sprawling into the free spaces around them, obscuring most of the floor space. Hushed whispers ripped through the crowd. Excitement, impatience, curiosity, all eyes forward on the king as he prepared to make his welcoming speech. The king cleared his throat, and a loud shriek rang through the ballroom as his projection apparatus engaged. My brain couldn't form the word projection. It's like, I see it, I know what it is, but I cannot. Curse that thing. Oh. Yep. That's certainly a desired sound effect. Sometimes the ingenuity of Steam Spire goes too far. The felonist flinched, desperately resisting the urge to cover his ears at the noise. An eerie silence fell in anticipation of the king's words. Ah, here we are. Good. For a moment, I had wondered if his gadget of Steam Spy had failed. He chuckled heartily and the crowd clapped at his joke. An attendant behind him shuffled awkwardly, his eyes trained to the visibly displeased Steam Spy delegate. Relations are already strained, and yet he has to make jokes at their expense. Most likely user error. The man whispered under his breath, almost silent. Words meant for only the ears of the felonist beside him. Skylar struggled not to laugh at the commentary. Welcome to the Jewel of Ashmire, the most regal palace of our shining nation. My home. A peacock. He cannot help but flaunt that which has landed in his lap. Welcome to our most honored and anticipated festival, the Moonflower Festival. This will be the first time any in this room have had the delight of witnessing our esteemed event. I welcome you to be merry and revel in what I have arranged for you. The king made a dramatic display of opening his arms out to the crowd, the jewels on his cloak tingling as they jostled. Like you personally even have raised even a finger to arrange any of this. The king made several more declarations about the wondrous and magnificence of the palace, the beauty of the palace, the talent at the palace this, the palace that. Each declaration was met with cheers and applause from the local nobility. Their favourite thing, after all, was to praise themselves. An event that only occurred once every century. Truly, almost none in this room had ever seen it, and would never see the spectacle that was the Moonflower ever again. Those that had seen it felt very differently about the show that was being put on for them. They felt resentment, concern, and an inexplicable sadness at the absence of the previous moonseer, a feeling that wasn't reflected in the nobility's smiling faces. For those that had been a part of the previous Moonfair, wanted nothing more than the Moonflower to see the care it needed, to see it freed from the captivity it existed within. An event 100 years in the making, yet none here save a select few knew anything about what they were about to experience, or why they were to experience it. This was the ultimate social event to most in the room, a party to be spoken about for years to come, a chance to enjoy festivities and activities, and to consume some of the most exclusive food the kingdom knew. Most importantly, the Moonfair was a chance for the nobility to meet and greet those their circle would never typically cross paths with. The Moonflower was a fable, a story passed around the kingdom to explain the differences in their technology to that of the other kingdoms. Magical items and augmented alchemy. A story that parents could tell their children. Very few legitimately believed the Moonflower was an actual flower, though it was a topic for much debate that never really led anywhere. Truly believing it was an immortal flower that generated magic was not a believable possibility for the masses. Not that I can blame them for that. The best way to describe the Moonflower was a fairy tale. A delicate princess locked away in a tower to protect her from the world. No one, save the Moonseer and the ruling monarch, was permitted to even see the magical flora, and lately not even the Moonseer was permitted access. He often wondered how exactly the common people viewed the event, and what they knew of the flower, of the history of the kingdom. The official history was drastically different from the actual events, particularly when it came to the acquisition of the Moonflower. What is this festival all about, you ask yourselves? This insurmountable power held at this prestigious kingdom. Our glorious kingdom is a relatively young one by a mere 1,000 years. Our origins are of bloodshed, driven from our previous home by war. Our kind and benevolent king sought a new home. Landing on the shores of what would become the glorious Ashmire, our first king was gifted a magnificent land by the stars themselves, a fertile and lush region filled with nothing as far as the eye could see. On the shores of his former land, he dubbed this new land Ashmire. On the ashes of his former land, not the shores. A reminder of what was lost, and a celebration of a people rising from the ashes to start anew. Before long, the herbalists in the company of the king discovered an unknown flower, one that glowed bright in the moonlight. This flower would become the crescent of our new nation. Strange occurrences would begin to occur around the flowers. Wounds would heal quicker, fatigue would disappear, even age would appear to begin to reverse. Skylar felt the elf beside him tense. Everything the king said was a lie. Propaganda the kingdom told itself to justify its campaign of blood and fire. But it was one he was used to hearing. All efforts to protect this unique plant would be taken. Should its nature be discovered, our illustrious king feared for the safety of the new kingdom. And he was right too. Word spread of the flower, and war once more faced the people of Ashmire. Men not of mortal flesh had come for what was theirs. The king sighed, clutched at his heart with a dramatic despair. Many years it took to once more emerge victorious, but at a devastating cost. As fire ravaged the newborn kingdom, most of the fields containing this beloved flower were destroyed. What remained, the king tasked the royal herbalists and arcanists to harvest and protect. Thus, construction of the crystal gardens commenced. The only truth in any of this was the garden being built. Skylar wrinkled his nose, keenly aware that should anyone look in his direction, they would see naught but a snarling cat in response to the impassioned monarch. Beside him, he felt his befriended elf's hands close into fists. It was comforting to meet a like soul. He spent his entire life at the palace pretending to accept their vision, their story. The queen had earned his respect, and her plan for change was one he wanted to support. He wanted to, and would have, if things had been different. Putting those thoughts aside, he scanned the crowd. Where was Olivia? Surely the king's precious daughter and Moonseer would be close by him. He rarely passed up an opportunity to show her off, after all. There, just a few steps down. She looks nervous. He wanted to go to her and calm her nerves. It left him unsettled to see her tense face. A face he had known since her birth. Her mother almost gave birth in my laboratory, for goodness sake. He had sworn to Queen Vera that he would protect and guide her. Vera was known to refer to him as Olivia's fairy godmother. Title he didn't quite understand, but one she assured him was quite well suited to him. The king waffled on, giving a full and complete history lesson as taught by the monarchy. When it came to the accomplishments and policies of Queen Olivia, the longest living of all the monarchs, Eamon might as well have waved his hand about and declared that she did nothing at all. He glossed over the details as if they were unimportant. Of course, Queen Olivia died at the ripe old age of 200, having seen 2 moon festivals. Festivals she developed to bring the kingdom together between classes and people, and the first ruler to welcome Faykind, the very same queen his mother had served. On the 7th night of the festival, my precious daughter, our beloved and beautiful Princess Olivia, will use her skills to revitalize the Moonflower in ritual. Ah, here we go. A strange look passed over the king's face. He seemed unusually excited about something. This will be our greatest of all festivals. With our greatest ever moonseer, my princess will achieve what no other moonseer before her ever could. The Moonflower. Ooh, he's a-comin'. Newbie get excited. The hair on Skylar's body prickled and rose as the room plunged into darkness. Olivia! Terrified shuffling and whispers met his ears from all directions. The previously transfixed crowd succumbed to the panic one by one, only led to more agitation as they began bumping into each other, scrambling to get away. None of them mattered to Skylar in the slightest, though. He dashed between the attendees, his cat eyes taking mere seconds to attune to the darkness. A single objective laid before him: protect Olivia. A flicker of pale green gently licked his cheek as he reached the foot of the staircase. Do not interfere. A whisper in the darkness, a voice which held no hostility, but a powerful one nonetheless. A fae. Be gone. Olivia! The voice withdrew, seemingly satisfied their objectives were not the same. The feloness leapt over a final guest. He's just like leapfrog vaulting over people. His arms finding a solid purchase around the princess. As he yanked her backwards off the stairs, the young woman squealed in fear. Be calm, it is... Nika, what is going on? The terrified princess clung to him, nails digging into his flesh. I don't know, but you must calm yourself. Father, where's father? A slow, building cackle sounded from where the king had stood moments before, and green flame erupted across the room. Faces of the nobles illuminated us by a sickly green. Their screams echoed through the room as the flames spread, flickering and dancing around the room, alive in a way fire should not be. Fail fire. A horrified Skylar stared at the figure before them, his grip tight on the struggling princess. The king was... Now, what were you saying, your majesty? Get him! A gremlin appears. Surely you were not about to make a grand declaration about the Moonflower in front of your adoring sycophants, were you? You were? My deepest apologies for interrupting you then. The men mimicked the stance of the king had previously held, arms wide open, reaching out to nothing. A manic smile plastered over his youthful face. Father! Nika, where is father? The princess shook in his grasp, anxiety visibly overwhelming her. Olivia. Another singular scream ripped through the ballroom, reverberating through the very bones of the crowd. Olivia. Her eyes were fixated on the figure in front of her, grey and textured. A rough stone replica of the king set perfectly in his place. His face, his clothes, his pose, and an expression of pure terror were carved into the piece. The green-haired stranger snapped his attention to the princess. Princess? That says princess. Whoops. He whistled the title, elongating the sound as if it was a new word never before said. Prettiest Princess Olivia. I would not touch that if I were you. You might... He pushed the stone sculpture beside him, watching as it vaporized into a haze of dust and ash as it collided with the ground. Break it. Whoops. The King of Ashes, Monarch of Ashmire. Literal ashes. How's that for a fitting end? You bastard. Her voice was hoarse and tense as she fought tears she didn't yet grasp the need for. The man gasped, playfully covering his mouth. Princess! Language, how unbecoming! What will your beloved High Alchemist think of you with words such as those, muttered from your innocent lips? Her voice strained, her body strained against Skylar, desperately attempting to reach the man taunting her. Olivia, listen to me. You must calm yourself. Let me go. And if I did, what then? What could you possibly do in this situation? Please, Olivia, think. I don't know. Her voice quivered, weak and unlike her. Whispers and murmurs started spreading through the silenced crowd, the gravity of the situation settling. A collective realization overtook the crowd, who desperately dashed for the exits. The king was dead. A strange mage stood before them, mocking their princess. What would stop him from coming for them next? The aggressor stomped his foot on the ground, on the stairs. Green flames flickered under his boot. A puff of dust rose in a small cloud, glittering in the light of the fire. Whew! Dusty in here! What are your servants doing? Skylar frowned at the man. Oh, too soon? Once more, the fiery attacker sent flames across the room. Several gas lanterns exploding in the rear of the room. Panicked nobles collected in a huddle. Some broke out in whimpers, tears streaming down their faces, while others took stances for weapons they did not carry. Do not give me such a look, Veronica. Do you expect me to believe you liked that buffoon? After the lies he just told these kind people? A dangerous glint in the man's eyes. He was ready for more destruction. In fact, I have just saved your precious princess's life. You may hold your applause. I understand it's a confusing time for everyone. I knew something felt wrong tonight. Who is this cretin? The boy assumed a peculiar stance. One Skylar himself had been in what had to have been hours ago. He was dancing. Skylar took a deep breath, and without... Skylar took a deep breath, and without taking his eyes off the intruder, he called for another, someone he felt he could trust. Sir Siddle, your princess needs you. Come. The intruder pulled a surprised face. He knew it was Sir Siddle. That much was obvious. A frantic scramble sounded through the crowd, and moments later a frightened but determined young brunette appeared beside him. The man tilted his head in slight confusion, puzzling out the young man before him. I guess he was unaware of his second son just as I was. He's allowing this, though. What is his purpose? He murdered the king, but now what? She almost seems... bored. Olivia, I want you to stay with Wesley here. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? The girl's lip quivered as she nodded. Skylar gripped the knight's shoulder, leaving him with a new charge. I have to be smart about this, for her and everyone else. This is dangerous and it could potentially get worse. I have to find a way to get us out of here in one piece. A room full of nobility, ministers, lawmakers, and townspeople all looked to him to save them as he stood before the fire wielder. Silence. Finally. At least you citizens are fundamental cognizant. You'll be able to understand what I'm about to tell you all. Skylar stared hard at the man before him. He wanted to demand his name, demand his reasons, but he knew that would be pointless. You have our undivided attention. Please, tell us. Oh, Veronica, you were always so polite. I feel those cogs in your head whirling. I do not know how you know that name, but I respectfully request you cease. The intruder cackled. Who calls me that? I can think of only one, but... A look of sheer delight crossed the green-haired man's face as he brought a single digit to his lips to shush the alchemist. Whirring and whirling, my darling. Don't spoil it, though. That would be no fun at all. Enough. Put everyone out of their misery and tell us why you linger here to announce. You did have an announcement, I assume. Yes. These things take time, you see. Time to boil and bubble and reach their full potential. Where is the fun in rushing things? Skylar's deadpan face made the strange man roll his eyes in response. Very well. Veronica doesn't want to play, and the princess is in no control too either. Skylar's body tensed at the mention of the princess. He was young, and the natural magics to his kind were still weak within him. If he had to fight, he was not sure he could actually win, not against Veilfire. The Moonflower. The bumbling idiots you have the gall to call kings have all but killed it. So, I'm going to take it from you. The crowd stole glances at one another, fear and confusion etched into their faces. Skylar kept his gaze trained on the figure. Take the Moonflower? No! You can't! You can't take it! The royal gasped her words, struggling to compose herself. No one is asking for your permission. Besides, you should be thanking me, my dear Princess Olivia. Your duty is done. Where's my gratitude? The man mocked sadness, pretending to cry. Felonous' ears twitched, a noise from behind the door catching his attention. The mysterious assailant seemed to notice the slight movement himself. Do you hear that, Veronica? Oh, it seems I must leave you to these people. The big men and their shiny garbage cans have arrived. He mocks, but I would be willing to bet he couldn't defeat them all right here and now. This does not end here, friend. I would be disappointed if it did. Once more the ballroom was plunged into darkness. Gas lanterns flaring and exploding, one by one down the walls. A shrill, piercing sound that resonated through the room forced the crowd to their knees. Skylar thought his ears would begin to bleed if it didn't end almost immediately. Skylar hobbled in front of Olivia and Wesley, crouching beside her, hand hovering over the sword at his waist. He had been prepared to protect her at all cost, had the danger still remained. Thanks to the blessing of his sight, he could see the danger had passed. Despite his sight, however, he had not seen how the green-haired menace had left. As the lanterns began to reignite around the room, and the screams died down, the ballroom was filled with a sterile silence. A quiet Skylar was not used to hearing. A heavy sensation settled on his heart. A quiet only broken up by the occasional sniffle, the rustling of fabrics, the quiet sobs of confusion and fear, which grew louder and louder as the realization of what happened sunk in. With the danger past, everybody knew it for sure. The king was dead. The princess wept for her father, tears streaming down her face in disbelief. Skylar took a deep breath, releasing it slowly as he glanced back to the kneeling girl before him. A startled shriek escaped the crowd as the continuous thumping sound vibrated through the ballroom. Guards. They took their time. Wesley nodded in response. I had wondered where they were. Why am I the only guard here? Father, A loud, booming voice called out to the group as the ballroom doors finally gave way. Wesley wrinkled his nose at the new addition who strode into the room. A face quite similar to Wesley, but older, more defined. With a voice Skylar most definitely recognized. Sir Thane Siddle, Knight and Captain of the Guard. While Skylar had little reason to interact with the man, unlike his younger brother, he was familiar with him. The man locked eyes with Skylar, making his way to the feloness with an almost unsettling gusto, barking a few orders to his men as he went. His eyes grew wide as he took in the image of his younger brother, hands still hovering over his sword, beside the High Alchemist and Royal Princess. The king specifically demanded no guard presence in the hall, to answer your question. Not a decision that I can say I agree with. Good hearing for a human. Later, you will tell me exactly what transpired here. For now, Sir Wesley.
Yes?
The young man sprang to attention, his body rigid as a board. Escort Princess Olivia. Somewhere safe for now. We'll deal with the crowd and work on flushing out our intruder out. He clenched his fists, a deep frown settling on his face. I don't know what he did to us, but it will not happen again. The guards were compromised then. Alchemy or a more direct magic? The two men shared a nod of understanding. Everyone, please remain calm. We are going to get to the bottom of this situation, I promise. Like you promised to keep the king and the royal family safe? Is Princess Olivia next? Random voices began to scream out, their confidence growing with each tense second that passed. Quiet down. We will do our utmost to... But he's right. What about the young princess? How will you ensure her safety? Her safety? What about our safety? The townspeople begin to argue with each other. They raise their voices in panic, screaming and shouting, some in fear for the princess, but mostly for themselves. Every single one of them is seeking an advantage in this situation. Captain Thane tried to quiet their voices, but there was no end to their bickering. Brother said to get the princess somewhere safe. But where could that be? If even the guards couldn't... Anger flared across the face of the barely present princess, her almost catatonic state allowing for few interactions. She does not like being babied. Wesley, do you know where my lab is?
Yes, sir, I do.
We shall return the... We go to find him. Skylar scanned the girl with a sympathetic gaze. Shock, devastation, and anger clashed and struggled to be the emotion to take hold of the defiant princess. Shaky on her feet, she stood before the knight and alchemist with a face that said she would not be defeated so easily. Are you going to let him escape? Just like that? Skylar crossed his arms, returning her angry scowl. The clatter of the crowd seemed distant to the trio. Skylar almost felt bad for the captain. Fielding the complaints and testimonies of so many tormented nobles sounded like the worst punishment to him. Skylar let out a sigh, placing a hand under his chin. Placing a hand under the princess's chin, wiping her tears with his thumb. Let us return to my lab, Olivia. We have much to process, and staying here will do you no good. Wesley, please escort the princess. I will join you momentarily. The young knight bowed deeply before ushering a suspiciously obedient Olivia out of the agitated ballroom. Skylar's eyes wandered across the crowd. Where did you go? Have you lost someone? I'm unsure, to be perfectly honest. I'm beginning to doubt he was even real. Captain? Do watch your step. He gestured to the ashen debris that was scattered across the step. I would hate for her to lose more than she already has. That's... A horrified expression followed his realization. Disgust mixed with fear and mixed with rage and fear. Was it Faye? Skylar lightly bit his knuckle and thought, I intend to find out. Good. Then you have my support. The knights and palace guards will follow your lead. Skylar raised an eyebrow. Unexpected, I must say. The captain gave a coy smile. Both men knew what his father felt, and both knew they would be keeping the situation from him as long as possible. And High Alchemist, protect her with your life. I always do, Captain. I will be counting on you. And Wesley. The other man averted his gaze, suddenly embarrassed by his personal concern. He is a valiant young man, scared, and yet he put his all into shielding her. You can be proud of him this night. If you weren't already, that is. That is comforting to hear. He is much softer than I. A good thing, I suspect. Captain Thane bowed. Ooh, he didn't bow deeply. Captain Thane bowed to the feloness and returned to the crowd, beginning the long process of gathering information and collecting what remained of the king. A doting brother? How unexpected. That old goat Siddle must be livid. Skylar hurried to return to his laboratory where the princess and her new guardian were awaiting. The heavy laboratory door swung open as the alchemist entered his domain. Leaning against one of the cluttered alchemy tables, Skylar let out a sigh and pulled his hat slightly over his eyes. That would be difficult, it's tiny. The darkness comforting. The captain has taken charge of debriefing the nobility, and Felonus pinched the bridge of his nose, his head throbbing. The remains of the king. The alchemist adjusted his hat to its proper place, locking eyes with Olivia. Tear tracks etched themselves into her skin, her pink-hued eyes catching the redness in her face. Yes, the remains of the king. A solemn silence passed over the trio. Olivia. The girl released the breath she had been holding, almost throwing herself onto the floor as her legs finally gave out under her. Skylar offered a bemused smile, and Wesley tried to look at anything but the princess. Are you okay down there? The girl puffed angrily. What do you think? I am a mess. Anger pulses through me, and I cannot bear to sit here any longer. The grieving, which is like ironic seeing as she just fell down there, any longer. The grieving royal grabbed her face, releasing a haunting scream as she did so, one full of anger, sadness, and helplessness. She leapt to her feet abruptly, startling the concerned young knight once again. So badly wants to help, yet has no idea how. We need to think Do not dare tell me to be calm once more. I've been plenty calm, Nika. My father was murdered in front of me. How can I be calm after that? How? Carefully, princess. Don't princess me, Nika. A thousand emotions passed across her face as she chewed on the name she just said. You are still the princess, whether you like it or not in this moment. A small noise sounded the tension as Sir Wesley stood by the pair with his hand raised in the air. You have something to add, Wesley? He called you Veronica? Skylar wrinkled his nose. He did, yes. The young man tilted his head in confusion. Never mind that. We cannot just stand here chatting. My father, the king, was slaughtered in front of us, and the culprit simply waltzed away. She slammed her palms down on a nearby desk. Bottles and satchels scattered across the floor as she did so. Destroying my laboratory will get you no further towards your answers. You don't want to hear it, but you must be calm. I need you to think. Did that man look familiar to you at all? I don't know. She winced, as if thinking was the last thing she wanted to do. Think. He reminded me of advisor Ezekiel Uther. The princess gasped at their unison answer, Wesley's eyes going wide. That's... Olivia stumbled backwards. No. It can't be. You're wrong, you must be. Why would he do this? How could he do this, Nika? His face. She clasped her hand over her mouth, stifling the urge to vomit. The Lord Advisor, is he not... A deafening crash startled the two men, drawing their attention from the conversation to the laboratory entry. Olivia! Princess? The young man's eyes went wide in fear. Oblivion, take her. This damn child is going to get herself killed. Oh, that's also... Whoops. What the... Wait here. Abandoning his usual decorum, the alchemist chased after the princess. Where would she have gone to find him? Where could he even be, for that matter? The Moonflower is illogical. The entire castle would be alerted if those boards broke. Skylar stood still in the silent hall, his ears focused on the sound of the palace. Dull sounds of far-off footsteps, skittering of small creatures, the panicked nobles. And amongst all that, the frantic panting of a woman not used to running. There you are. The sleeping quarters? Why go there? Skylar entered the hallway leading to the advisor's chambers, his steps quickening. So this is where Lord Uther resides. Velinus crossed his arms, leaning against the wall as the princess he sought struggled with a locked door. It won't open. Again and again she tried, tugging, pushing, kicking, nothing worked. A princess attempting to... Not... How have I missed so many... Princess attempting to kick down a reinforced oak door. That's new. Quiet. Either help me or shut up. The alchemist raised an eyebrow at her outburst. Skylar could feel his patience wearing thinner as he watched the young woman's futile attempts at entry. Okay, now I'm just screenshotting all my errors. Oh my goodness. What to do?
she's not having much luck at kicking in the door, but she is trying. A for effort.
Yeah. I didn't want Olivia to be, like, meek and helpless, but at the same time she needed to be acting a bit logically. She's strong, but she's not coping at the same time. We shall convince her. Olivia, listen to me. You must stop this. You will get nowhere with this. What is your plan if you manage to get in, Barge in with no defense, and then what? The princess clenched her fist, pivoting her body to confront the alchemist berating her. I can't just sit and wait. You cannot ask me to do that. You have no choice. The girl made to retort but was silenced by Skylar. If you had let me finish my theory before running away, without even a hint of a plan, you may have some idea of what we're up against. Let us return to my laboratory. Now. The alchemist turned on his heels, marching back to his laboratory, the princess begrudgingly beside him. The frustrated alchemist and his lethargic princess made their way back to the laboratory in silence. While their journey was uneventful, Skylar was unable to shake an ominous feeling. Someone was watching them. No matter how subtly he tried, even his senses couldn't identify who or where the feeling was coming from. This night keeps getting more and more irritating, doesn't it? You're back! I left a puppy alone in a room. Skylar nodded to the young man. Briefly resting a hand on his shoulder, he walked past him, wandering further into the expansive room. This calls for something a little stronger than tea. Why did you speak to me like that? Percy's just like, no, nope. Like what? Back there. You've never spoken to me like that before, Nika. I don't like it. It worked, did it not? Have I not suffered enough this night? And you will suffer more still if you do not start listening to me. Olivia frowned, poised to argue with her felonous mentor. Now, Uther. The princess bit her lip, fighting the urge to continue bickering. The alchemist had gained her attention, and she settled down for the moment. Could it really be him? Is he not, well, an old man? The young man scratched his head, and Olivia nodded to him. He is, or perhaps was? I take it you're about to explain? Not exactly. I do not know why he appears as he does. But Skylar held out a hand to silence her. How much do you know about the circumstances of Lord Uther losing his post as High Alchemist? Do you know how long ago it actually was? Olivia's brows wrinkled as she thought. He's been an advisor as long as I can remember. Yes. And not to answer my own query, but it's been 24 years. In that time, an extensive investigation was conducted against him. Lord Ezekiel Uther was accused of researching a forbidden discipline, necromancy. The human before him gasped in horror. Necromancy? But why? Knowledge. Power and wealth often go hand in hand with the relentless pursuit of knowledge despite the cost. You say that like it's nothing. Necromancy is evil. How can you speak of it like it's... I can only assume that he found something. The felonist's body tensed, the fur on his tail standing on end, eyes darting around the familiar environment. It seems I was correct. We are being observed. Nika, what's wrong? Wesley shifted his position to be ready to draw his weapon and shook his head at the princess, gently hovering his index finger before his lips to gesture silence. His eyes never left the wired feloness as he positioned himself in front of Olivia. Fear gripped the princess as she shrank back behind the man. Skylar glanced at Olivia, then back towards the noise. She's hiding behind the night. Good. The pupils of the feloness restricted to mere slits as he stalked the sound around his laboratory. Unlike their canine relatives, the Kinnear, feloness did not appear fully feline characteristics at all times. Eyes, teeth, claws, they had them, but it took a mental effort to reveal them. It was most common to hide these features around humans, and to utilize them was a sign of deep aggression. Skylar loosened the potions at his side, notching them between his fingers like blades. Simple concoctions he carried with him in case he needed to make an escape in an unfortunate event he was cornered by a disagreeable noble. One bewildered, another induced sleepiness, and the third could render him invisible. This was another place that I would have loved to have put an extra chibi, because I think it would have been very cute for all three of the options that happen to get a little chibi out of it. Let's see. Should we bewilder, sleep, or invisible? Okay, let's bewilder. Skylar's nimble fingers grasped at the bottle of bewilderment. Few enemies were dangerous if they were too confused to so much as perceive their surroundings. The feloness crept towards the source of the noise, poised to toss the bottle. A flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye was all it took for the alchemist to throw the bottle. The young knight sat dizzy-headed on the floor of the laboratory. You absolute fool, what are you doing? My chippy here would be a little Wesley with some little birdies thrown around his head. And some little swirly eyes, all bamboozled. I think it would have been so cute. The young man looked around himself with a baffled expression, finally locking eyes with the twitching cat ears in front of him. Wesley? Well, no use expecting an answer for at least a few minutes. Tears welled in the corner of the young man's eyes and he burst into tears. He's crying? The alchemist jumped back in shock. his mind rapidly reviewing the ingredients used in the elixir to elicit such an unexpected reaction.
Nika!
The scream of the princess pierced through the feloness's thoughts. A coy smile spread across the lips of the intruder as he slipped in behind Skylar. The alchemist's entire body snapped rigid as the raven-haired elf gently rested a finger beneath the other's chin. You. Two men stayed rooted in place, staring intently at each other. A playful grin spread as the elf raised the chin of the angry alchemist before him, more cat-like in his irritation. Yes, yeah, there are so many places that I would have put CGs if I could have. It's just, and now I have to leave it alone now as well, because if I was to keep going back, just adding things, as I was able to, it'd never stop. And that's just other things to focus on, other games to make. This has to be done now, but we've got the DLC coming, so that'll be some extra CGs. A valiant attempt at stealth, truly. If only your companions were not so noisy. You definitely would have had me. Skylar's brow twitched. Is he trying to tease me? He had been captured in his own laboratory by a stranger, and now he was teasing him. What are you doing here? Me? Skylar's eyes narrowed. My, that is a mood. Am I not welcome? His playful countenance filled with an innocent curiosity. To listen to him speak, none of the past hour had it happened at all. Enough. The king is voiced. The king is not voiced. The king is gone. The advisor is touched, and a mysterious elven man who is a stranger to all present suddenly appears, flirts with the High Alchemist, and disappears right as the ruler of the kingdom is assassinated, only to reappear again after, like nothing had happened. The elven man's cheerful grin dropped. Are you going to tell me who you are? You are going to tell me who you are, or you can spend the rest of your time here in a dungeon with a warden known for his particular cruelty towards Feyborn. The man's eyes warped into horror at the threat posed to him. Skylar's slit pupils visually dissecting him, sending a shiver down his spine in response. A weak smile struggled to settle on the handsome face. A guilty, apologetic, and concerned expression. You aren't one for physical threats, Alchemist Skylar. Does the night truly weigh that heavily on you? Unless in your idle musings you are about to introduce yourself, I suggest you cease your chatter. Wesley, fetch the captain of the guard. What, The pair glanced at the young man slouched on the floor. Useless. You meant well. It would be unnecessary. Right, my good sir? Princess pulled back her shivering shoulders, locking eyes with the unknown male. Your affection for our High Alchemist is admirable. However, surely you can see how your game of mystery is distressing? She gently rested her hand on the forearm of the elf, her earnest eyes trapping him in her gaze. Please, sir, Tell us who you are. Do this favor for a grieving princess. No, a grieving daughter. Skylar folded his arms in front of his chest, a deep scowl settling on his face as his features returned to their usual state. Do not look at me so. Very well. Shaking off the princess's hand, the elven stranger extended his long limbs before sweeping them down in a deep bow. It is a pleasure to meet you, High Alchemist Veronica Skylar. I have heard much of your genius. My name is Endiku, an investigative detective hailing from Steamspire. Detective? Confusion replaced the aggression on Skylar's face. His head tilted, and his porcelain limb found its way to his chin. A single finger hooked in front of his lips in his thinking pose, Olivia had always called it. A detective? Why would a detective be here? Why does it feel so rehearsed? Convenient answer to hide behind. Very well, detective. Why are you here? To experience the moon fair, of course. I had hoped to see the moonflower just like everyone else. To see it? Or to steal it? Nika! A complicated mix of surprise and sadness passed over the elf's features. See, but I do admit I had my own suspicions of its safety. Your own concern tonight speaks volumes. You also felt something was wrong, did you not? Nika? Is this true? What does he mean? The alchemist glanced at the princess before nodding solemnly. It is. I did not wish to worry you, as your role as Moonseer and Princess alike are stressful enough. However, there is something in the air. It is difficult to explain. A disturbance of some kind which has altered the usual composition of the natural energy. The trio turned towards the meek voice, completely forgetting about his presence in the room. Poor Leslie. Ah, it seems our knight has recovered. Brother, Sir Thane, I mean, he mentioned in preparation for the ball that he found something odd. Odd? Tell us. Her urgency made the young man flinch. He gingerly glanced at the alchemist. Well, there were many things, too many things, submitted by the alchemists. Skylar's posture changed in startled recognition. Yes, right. Nika? Additional drafts of protection, a warding talisman, a few other supplemental artifacts to ensure the ceremony was not interrupted once it began. Designed to protect Moonseer and Moonflower both. You... Captain Thane seemed pleased by the additions, but Father didn't plan on using any of the alchemist submissions though. He said they wouldn't need them. The king seemed to have thoughts on the proceedings as well. Before his announcement was cut short, that is. Related, perhaps? Ender nodded in agreement. I believe so. Olivia paced back and forth, her mind racing as the voices of the other three men became distant whispers. She tried to keep calm, desperately trying to contain herself as she replayed everything over again in her mind, in her head. Enough! I don't care about any of this, not even in the slightest. Before he showed up, you were going to talk about that bastard Uther. No more distractions. Are we not already? This relates directly. I think it's related, Your Highness. I agree. Princess's face screwed up into an angry grimace as she turned towards Skylar, eyes flashing with a violent passion. Olivia, your patience is precisely why I always refuse to teach you my craft. Think. Do not treat me like a child, Nika. Not now. Then do not act like one. My father was assassinated, yes. And if your beloved alchemist had expressed his concerns, would you have listened? What? How dare you? I do not mean to distress you, Your Highness, but please understand that the current conversation is relevant to everything that has happened tonight. Even the captain of the guard had expressed gratitude for the additional protections. The atmosphere of this night has been so unsettling that even a timid young knight with no connection sought out the High Alchemist to ensure he was present, as one the princess trusted. Wait, what? Wesley? Wesley went beet red as the elven investigator spoke, shaking his hands in front of him in a desperate attempt to make him stop. Oh, my apologies. Was that not meant to be known? I was told the princess sent him. Now isn't that a twist? I suppose that explains her confusion at sending Siddle's son on an errand. Please forgive me! The young knight threw himself on the floor before the alchemist, babbling all kinds of apologies. There's no need. It's fine. I'm almost impressed by the deception, to be honest. Alright, detective. Let us review what we know then, shall we? The ball. You must be aware the ball was invite only. How exactly did someone that no one's ever heard of manage to procure an invite? A coy smile graced the face of the detective in response to Skylar's piercing gaze. That is one secret I cannot tell, but I can assure you I was invited. Really? Is that so? Your familiarity with the proceedings also suggests this wasn't your first Moonflower, and yet Moonflare, and yet you assure me it is. It is familiar to me, yes, but is there any of our kind who do not know of it? It's a fair rebuttal, I suppose. It is true that the festival is known to almost all land-based Faeborn. It was our beliefs they took for themselves, after all. The night. Let me get this straight. You knew of Sir Wesley's ruse before I even met you? It is indeed curious that you would have come across him at all prior to the ball, don't you think? Well, I said I'm a detective, did I not? I may have conducted a sweep of the castle prior to arriving at the ball. Purely for research, of course. You were snooping around my home? An awkward cough escaped the elf as his eyes darted away from the young princess. Sprites are just so pretty. Look at those curves. They're all so curved. The Moonflower. Tell me, how fares the Moonflower? Truly. None of your It is dying. Nika, why would you... The two men locked eyes, both occupying an aura of deathly silence and seriousness. But you knew this already, so why do you feel the need to ask? You... knew? Nika, don't treat me as if I'm not here. Please. I am the Moonseer, and I have... I know I will never be what Veronica was before me, but why do you speak like the Moonflower state is unknown to me? You claim something different to what the palace knows. How could it be dying? The Moonflower you know is an alchemic recreation. Zeke? Zeke? Lord Ezekiel Uther. Former High Alchemist and current advisor to the Crown. Current nothing. That murderous bastard deserves no such title. To what end does it serve, however? I wonder. Who is the advisor? Father would talk about Ezekiel sometimes, but he always seemed angry about his existence. He really seemed to hate him. Lord Ezekiel Uther. The High Alchemist to Ashmire Palace until one day 25 years ago, news broke that he had been News broke that he had been removed from his post and placed under observation. Around the same time Mother discovered she was with child. No, I guess that works. He's been advisor for 24 years and he was removed from his post 25 years. You took the post shortly after, did you not? I have always wondered how that came to be. Yes. An attempt was made on Queen Vera's life shortly before Lord Uther lost his post as alchemist. She did not believe it was Uther's doing, but nonetheless she came to me and would not leave until I agreed. Really? That does sound like Mother. Needless to say, the replacement of Uther with a Skylar did not sit well with the monarchists. But that is not relevant. He shook his head, chasing away the bitter thoughts of his own history. Sadness etched itself into Ender's expression as he did so. I'd wager he knows something about that too. But why? What was he accused of? Rumors of that reached far. The High Alchemist of Ashmire was accused of researching forbidden arcana. He's already actually told you that he was dealing with necromancy. Necromancy. The two young humans gasped. They have short memories, apparently, as does their rider. Oops. What I found most curious was the abilities he displayed, however. The attitude he had about the whole event. He was amused, a cat playing with a mouse. Cruel and vicious. He has always been strange, but I had no idea that's why he lost his post. I always thought you were simply more qualified. I am, but that is not how I came to be here. In all honesty, I've always gotten on well with Ezekiel. His role as advisor put us in frequent contact. He was polite, inquisitive, and quite personable. Unlike most others in this palace, if he resented my existence, he never alluded to it. You were friends? Not exactly. He was merely far more tolerable than anyone else in the court I was forced to attend. The only one who gave my existence, my expertise, any credit. A man of knowledge and truth, despite the circumstances. Necromancy, that's death magic? The young man struggled to piece the puzzle pieces together. If thoughts could take form, the young knight would be surrounded by queries. Something like that, yes. What did he do to the king? He swallowed hard, the thought too raw to even say aloud. Was that necromancy? No answer was forthcoming. An excellent question. Necromancy is not exactly my expertise. I would be willing to hypothesize, with significant confidence that the technique utilized was learned through his study of necromancy, but it appeared to be... specifically it appeared more earth-based in nature. I agree. I have not personally seen such a technique, but it appears more akin to breaking down the formula of something, rather than life-sapping. You were there to see it? Before Skylar could press the man any further, Olivia's voice interrupted. And that green flame, is that part of it too? Veil fire. Usually I would say no. Veil fire is something completely different, but I suspect someone taught him, and that it is intimately related to his knowledge of necromancy too. And if he was able to learn it, then that would mean it would appear so. Could he not actually be human? Someone taught him? I don't understand. What do you mean? It's, well, a darker side of history. Not many know the truth of the land they stand on. The elf's voice trailed off, a quiet stillness overcoming him. A history he is closely familiar with. I wonder how old he is. Impossible to tell on appearances alone. And if he is as old as I suspect, he guards his aura well. To understand, you would need to be taught forbidden knowledge. And I feel we have enough drama for one night. And you know this knowledge? Skylar smiled at the young man. That is a very leading question, young Wesley. I didn't mean... He fell silent, cheeks blushing pink as he thought about the implications of what he had said. Skylar sighed and rubbed his temples. We can talk about the logistics of Arcana and theories all night, but that won't get us any closer to answers. Then we go after him, what I've been saying from the start. Princess. The only place you are going is to your quarters under heavy guard. What? No, absolutely not. Olivia. Anger flashed across the feloness's face, frightening the princess into silence. Her pursed lips betrayed her desire to argue back. Olivia, you are all that's left of the royal line now. If you truly think I would allow you to run off after the man who just turned your father to dust with ease, you are frankly mistaken. I made a vow to your mother that I would protect you until her return. My loyalty to her was earned through years of pestering and action. As much as I care for you, you are but a child here. You must remember your station. Tears welled in the royal's eyes. Have I been too cruel? Princess, if you will return to safety, I swear to you I will act in your interest. I will not stop until your mission has been fulfilled. I will be your voice where you cannot speak. The Fae glanced at each other. That was almost romantic. Princess, I cannot act if I am preoccupied with worrying about you. Wesley, please escort the princess to her quarters. Inform Captain Thane of her return. He will assign trustworthy men to her. Yes, sir. Look at that. When he's focused, he's actually quite dependable. Let's hope this continues. I do not approve of this. You cannot simply push me aside. Princess Olivia, darling little Moonseer, your life is precious, but so is the High Alchemist's. Were you to come under threat, he would die. And if he was forced to sacrifice his life for you, then he cannot fulfill your wish of him. The elf gently patted the woman's hair, and tears fell from her eyes. Please, princess, consider him. If you insist on accompanying him, It is he who will be hurt, not you. Do you wish for another to perish for you this eve? His harsh words were soft. His harsh message was soft and rhythmic. He could have been humming her a lullaby, his words were so gentle. A comforting energy wrapped around him, calming Olivia. I see. He has an innate restorative ability. He's restoring her rationality by healing the pain her mind is in. Incredible. A few minutes passed of Ender gently coaxing the frail princess into agreeing to return to safety. Finally, she relented. Although Skylar was not altogether convinced. Fine. You have made your point. Escort your obstacle to her quarters. Olivia. She turned on her heel and marched out the heavy metal door. Wesley scrambled to catch up to her. She won't stay away. You realize this, don't you? I do not think she can handle the truths of this night. Let her simmer in her thoughts away from the one she tries so hard to impress. I fear everyone is worried about her feelings, that no one stops to consider yours. Skylar's eyes went wide. Mine? Am I wrong in thinking that you would die before allowing harm to come to her? Skylar's nose wrinkled, enough of an answer that no words were needed. If she puts herself in the enemy's path, all she will accomplish is your death. I cannot allow that. Not you too. He closed his eyes, resting a hand against his heart. My words may have been cruel, but they are practical. She has no direct skills, no magic, she is scared and angry, and all of those things are not a danger to her, but to those around her. I would not say she is without skill, detective. Olivia is probably one of the most skilled fencers the kingdom has. She nearly triggered a war, defeating a prince who travelled here to woo her once. The alchemist chuckled to himself. You are correct, however. I believe there is more to Zeke than we know. He is not using necromancy. Those were Fey magics. Those of the Blood Fey, to be precise. He has broken into something dangerous indeed. Contact with a Fey would not be enough to wield magic like that, though. He has made contact with one, or has he been taught? You think he's part Fey? Perhaps. I suppose it's possible. Ender paced back and forth, his head tilted slightly to the side as he thought. You really did look like a detective solving a case at the moment. Do you know of any who can affect a human's lifespan in such a dramatic fashion? The alchemist gazed through the large window in the upper level of his laboratory. To reverse time? None. The Moonflower has been known to extend life. The entire royal family has all lived 50 to 100 years past the average human, all while maintaining a youthful appearance. But to turn back the clock? His aging had to have been faked to begin with. The Moonflower couldn't have reversed time. Ender paused his pacing, looking Skylar in the eyes. I will say, I do not think the princess was wrong to head to his quarters. She would not have found him. A villain does not simply walk back to Mordor, to his quarters after committing such an act. No, he is not there. We will likely find our answers there, however. Right, his research. Correct. The door is locked, and our dear Olivia had the misfortune of discovering. And I do not think that any conventional methods will unlock it. So that's where you disappeared to. Chaos descended on the ballroom and you went to the advisor's quarters? The elf shied away from the question. Not exactly. Skylar narrowed his eyes. You went to the Moonflower. How do you even know where the Moonflower is, pray tell? Moreover, you said the Moonflower Olivia knows is a fake. An alchemist's creation. You seem to know a lot about it, don't you? I did. How to explain? Truthfully, that's why I'm here. Rumors travel the air, taste strange. Though, I admit that sounds a little peculiar once spoken aloud. The man sighed, worry evident on his face. It has never felt like this before. I have never been compelled to attend. For if I do not myself, who will? There is much I cannot reveal yet, but I beg of you to trust me. Even if you find that difficult. I cannot do this without you. You are the key to all of it. Then let me present my hypothesis. You know the Moonflower because that is where you went. You went to the altar. The elf nodded. I had suspected as much. It holds little power, a shadow of what the actual flower should be. But make no mistake, I thought Olivia had been privy to this. It seems Queen Vera's fears have been realized. What was she afraid of? Do you know? A nerve twitched in the alchemist's cheek. As he thought of the Queen, he shook his head in dismay. All I know is she feared for Olivia, and she knew the truth of the previous Moonseer. I do not believe it to be Zeke who has fallen to corruption, necromancy or otherwise. However, he has certainly used it to his advantage. We need to enter his quarters. Have you a way? An uncommon expression passed over the alchemist's face. Something a little devious, a little excited. A chance to use his skill in this way came so rarely. The Count was never. You speak to the most skilled alchemist on this continent. Of course I have a way. Come. Well, I do not have what I need on hand. I can make it. The detective's face lit up with wonder. The prospect of getting to partake in a creation with the High Alchemist proved too enthralling to decline. Let's see. For a start, combine the base key and the golden clay, and then add the spherical garnet. What does that do? You'll see, won't you? Boom! Key! Ender's eyes shimmered at the creation before him. May I? Skylar couldn't help but smile. It was rare that someone didn't get excited by the process of alchemy, but this tall, regal stranger was so enthralled, Skylar could have sworn that that he was physically glimmering. Of course. Feel free to combine 2 ingredients and mix them together. See what you get. Should be safe. Should? Indeed. Should. Okay. There are several different things that this alchemy table can make. All of them do something to the story. Some significant, some just a few lines change, some change how a scene plays out completely. And oh. Combine any 2 ingredients and see what they do. Try looking for similar colors or items that might naturally pair together. Some will do nothing, or some will make an alchemic creation. Clicking on the book to open the at the alchemy bench will open Skylar's recipe book, revealing all combinations and what they make. So, if you zoom around, there are all the different things that you can click on, and they will all make something. So we can, let's see, key again. Do we need 2 keys? They'll all get you some kind of response. Well, I admire your efforts. I do not believe we need another key. This one should work fine. My apologies, I got carried away. Why don't you try making something else? So the setup of this now came with an update when we added the sprites and everything. It originally didn't really give you any idea of how you can actually, what you could actually make. I had a separate guide released for it. The book doesn't light up, just, you know, in case you don't want to know. So you don't accidentally click it. But if you click on the help, it will tell you that there's the book there. But yeah, if you click on this book here, it'll open a recipe book that will give you everything that you can make, and what it is that they are. Yeah, so when we did our last little update for it, we completely overhauled the way that this works, just to make it a little bit more user-friendly. We were in a bit of a rush when we did originally, and I'd never made a minigame before, so it just kind of didn't even occur to me that that was something that I probably needed. We added that after feedback from players needing to know and struggling with actually doing combinations. So let's see. These are all purple. I have absolutely no memory of what makes what. These are all purple though, so what does that do? Anything? Does not do anything. The item fizzles away. Well, how about you try another? The item fizzles away. Nope, I'm not very good at this. Aha! I found the recipe in one of your books. I thought I would try my hand at it. Ah, an invisibility draft. An interesting choice. It could come in useful. You never know when stealth might be needed. I wouldn't refuse the chance to stock up. I can think of many an occasion where one might have been useful. The two men stepped back from the station, admiring the creations before them. So, your experience with alchemy? Me? I wouldn't say so. I have simply been around many an alchemist in my lifetime. You pick up a few things along the way. Plus, the notes you write are incredible. Skylar turned the key he had crafted over in his hands, absent-mindedly fiddling with the item. So a key. It's beautifully intricate, yet nondescript enough that someone not versed in alchemy wouldn't be able to tell its value. Are the mechanisms of it what make it so remarkable, or have you imbued it in some other way? Skylar paused his fussing, holding the key out towards the detective. I would say 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, if I were to be honest. Wait. Six of one, half a dozen of the other. That's 6 and 6. Seeing Ender's confused expression, Skylar continued his explanation. Its function is similar to a skeleton key. A key stripped back to the very essentials of that can unlock many a door. But there's a key difference. The elf beamed at his pun once again. He really did seem to be a fan of them. Having been alchemically created and imbued, it has the natural ability to unlock that which has been sealed with alchemy, something a skeleton key would have no hopes of achieving. The alchemist lightly tapped the key against the rim of his hat. I have no way to really know whether it will work or not, though. There's no accounting for how strong his defenses may be. And even if it does work, I can't say it will work more than once. The taller man folded his arms across his chest. So he must be swift and exact. Like any good alchemist, there is little room for deviation. Shall we then? Our investigation awaits, dear alchemist. It does indeed, detective. The two stood in silence. The task they faced weighed heavily on their shoulders. And with that, I believe that is an excellent place to stop for today. We are 3.5 hours into this stream, and I think that this is kind of a milestone spot for the story. From here, they change location and a lot more answers. Will be revealed. So we'll pick this up again at some point in the future. I cannot promise when. I have a DLC to create, and I'm working on also releasing more for the in-between. I have some Patreon stories to write, and I have some editing to do, and there is a lot of tasks and only one me. I finished my common route writing for the in-between lately, so I've taken the opportunity of completing that to play Baldur's Gate 3. Finally, I've been dying to play it, and I'm in love with it. Of course I am. Pale Elf, my love. So thank you for... That is something I'd like to stream in the future too, because I think that would be fun. There are so many things I'd like to stream in the future. Tomorrow we have another video, another stream, another game, and I've forgotten what it was on my schedule. What am I playing? What am I playing? Aha! So tomorrow we have Amelie from 2.5 Studios. As I said, I'm playing a bunch of our games for Storytellers, which is starts at the end of the month and then it goes for a week. So there'll be lots of discounts and stuff there. I will be doing a giveaway from this stream for a Moonflower key that will end as Storyteller starts, which is on the 29th. So to go in the draw to win a Moonflower game key, I need you to comment below who your favorite character is that you've seen so far. Which you've seen all of them, actually. So if you'd like to win a game key for Moonflower and continue playing, leave a comment, and on the 29th I will pick one of the comments to receive a game key. So thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you for watching. I hope I see you tomorrow at the same time today started, which is 10 AM Sydney time or 5 PM CST. I think time zones are hard. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll stay, and thank you and goodbye. Oh, I should have been on